All right, guys, thank you so much for joining with Smart Hospital Podcast with FacilitiOne. I'm your host, Krish Darius. Today, we have a wonderful MedTech partner, Sabrina Runbeck, who has joined us here today. Good morning, Sabrina. Thank you so much for joining us. Sabrina, since I have known you for a little over a year, if I'm right, I would like you to introduce yourself to our audience who are actually going to be watching you throughout the podcast today.
Appreciate everyone for joining. We know you can be doing anything and you choose to be here. So we honor your time and your open mindedness and also wanted to be a learner. I think at the end of the day, that's what we can do all together. I am a recovered clinician. I cardiothoracic surgery practice more than 10 years. During that period, I was always the one who's thinking about how do we truly impact many and not just waiting for the patients to come to our door. And through that process, I was also very burned out because I was in these large facilities, hospital system that you tend to do what? Constantly adding on those cases. Yes, we have the meat and potato of cabbage, the coronary bypass, but most of the time we are doing the aneurysm, the transplants, the everything in between. It's an exciting job when you think about it, right? New graduate, I think many of us, doesn't matter if you go into a new job or just simply new environment, you have that exciting moment of let me just take on everything, we'll get it going, build out my resume. And a lot of innovators does do that too, is how do I get as many people as possible who support me and just get started somewhere? But what we forget, what we start losing is, am I in the right identity? Am I creating the best legacy, the best impact of what I meant to do? Or I simply jump on a wagon of it, the excitement, what I call the first day. And then things get hard, things take a longer time, and your team start to wobble, right? We know even by the Gallup's statistics that show every one third of any organization, people are disengaged, and another one third are actively disengaged. So I start going to that round too. So when you are disengaged means you start not feeling good about everything you're putting out, right? That roller coaster doesn't matter if you're leader, your team, if you're innovator leading the whole company, right? You're the decision maker, you're stakeholder. You start feeling that disconnect. And then when people are actively disengaged means they start talking bad about things happening, right? And that's even more dangerous from an organization, larger ones and small ones, because the small ones, from a startup standpoint, you can't afford to lose people. From a mid-sized organization, you realize if someone leaves, even just a sick day, you have to pick up extra work. So can we really afford to do that? And I got into the round of, wow, most of us in healthcare are always talking about the caring, advocacy for our patient, for other people. But at what point are we advocating for ourselves? So that's the turning point for me is to say, unless I do something about it, then we would not be able to change to the positive side. We are actually joining the complaining train instead of positive movement train. That's how I launched my podcast 3 years ago. Now we are charting top 100 on Apple Podcasts in the US and UK for entrepreneurship, for Providers Edge, and then help many other thought leaders, experts within the healthcare space, as well as the startup to see how do you actually show up? How do you have the right people with you to be heard? How do you have that social support so you can create the right legacy that matches what you meant to do on this earth? And with the right skill set, the right people collaboratively on this journey together. And sometimes that takes a little bit of learning curve. And that's also the exciting part of what we can create at any point of our life.
In regards of, you have been on the both sides, right, Sabrina, in regards of healthcare wise or the innovation as of you have been running your successful podcast show and you're more indulged into this world of innovation, right? The question I have for you is the high intensity clinical environments to venture and founder advisory. What type of problems in healthcare and health tech industry are you more focused on that you personally see that has been actually a big problem, the big red button that I would call it as? What is the biggest problem that's happening in the industry, in the both world?
I think when we think about biggest problem, it's also tied into personal connection, personal passion. And because you can see a big problem, then I might not have to feel the intensity. So where I been focusing on and my team been focusing on has actually six different domains within a healthcare space. Number one is that digital environment. Everyone somehow attach AI to their solution and call it an AI company. That's not it, right? There's the implication of how is that AI going to solve a problem. So digital health is definitely one of our biggest focus. And then the next one is also diagnostic. We are
Mhm.
start seeing the shift from understanding that you have a disease and only do something when you start going down the rabbit hole to how do we detect early? How do we prevent something from progressing? Or simply understanding that help you to see those symptoms or factors around your whole family and your ecosystem. And also, we are having a lot of my work is always supporting women-led companies. And my TED Talk from 2019 was on that topic of how come it's so hard to raise funds in healthcare for women-led. And
Mhm.
the counterpart is you have to build that ecosystem and also promoting more women clinicians to become those investors so we can reshape the scale, right? So women's health and women founders become something that we also have so many passion for. And my background before I went into medicine was in neuroscience. So of course, mental health has been a big wave of what's possible, right? Both biosensors and different simulations, different drug alternative, right? For both pediatric anti-bullying, getting them to be more resilient, as well as for us, right? One of the things that we look into how a company can be truly sustainable, scalable, are the core resiliency within their founder, co-founder, executive, and the whole company's team, right? How are they infrastructurally built for that operational resilience? So these become something that we have been spending a lot of time on. Of course, the other big thing is biotech, right? Drug discovery, you leveraging AI, leveraging preventive measures, and not just again thinking about treating the cancer, right? We have more things that we're playing. Plant-based nutrition medicine has all started coming into play in those areas. So it's a very exciting place to be.
That's right. Like the reality is that a lot of things have been changing in the healthcare industry, right? The holistic approach, the way the AI, biomed or biopharmaceutical, we call it. It's a lot of changes that has happened over the years. And me personally, looking at like I've been in the industry for quite some time, not as long as you, but I've seen the way things change around. There's so much uncertainty that's in the process itself or in the industry itself. So the market is getting, as we were discussing prior to our podcast, it's becoming a little bit of an odd situation, right? Now, coming back to where we actually see as like innovators, right? The health tech industry. Now, from what you have seen over the last years, Sabrina, what usually breaks first when a company has a good product but cannot scale?
Number one thing breaking is that most people don't have a stable enough operational system. And then this, why they don't have that is usually because the people are not matched to that. So we talk about, if you think about a simple way of health, is that mind body soul connection for a human, right? And
Mhm.
then we're seeing that a company also has to have a mind body soul connection within that self. So what does that look like? The body part is what people think we're special, we have a technology, we have a product, we have a service, we have system. We're like, awesome. That's the core of your IP. But your IP is not just the product service. Your IP is also how are you going to deliver the service you're going to promise, with who you're working with,
Mhm.
and who are you serving, right? And those additional question, most people don't dive deeper enough. That's why they always tell me, Sabrina, we need to educate the market. They just don't get us. Then I always say, you're talking to the wrong people. And those wrong people, if you have to overeducate that, that's when we do a heat index on how hot are the people you're talking to, whether they become your investor or your enterprise contract. What does that even mean? There are 5 levels. So the heat index, level 1 is people are just cold. They have no idea about this problem. And even you share with them, they're like, oh, really? Right? You really have to do too much to convince them. So those people you should definitely not talk to. The second level are people is they're self-aware. They're curious. But it's kind of annoying pain. Then they're just like, oh, okay, it's there. But why would I do something about? Level 3 people is like, well, I feel like this could be the blocker to something else I'm doing. So maybe I start digging, doing a little bit of personal research, maybe Googling things, ChatGPT, right? But they're still in that, I'll wait period. I can just figure it out. Level 4 people start due diligence of let's do some research. I really see that if I don't do this, my sales is stuck, right? In that valley of death. I'm kind of just there. I'm clearly doing something. People are talking to me. They're saying this is great, but just because they tell you it's great, are we having results, right? And
Yeah.
then so then level 5 people is like, oh my gosh, I'm burning cash. If I don't finish this thing in the next quarter, I'm gonna close my door, right? So we need to start talking to the people who we were saying they're having a heart attack. You need to save them now, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
How can you talk to them? And that part is the organizational infrastructure of connecting two more things. It's your messaging positioning of why people believe in you so much and who are your messenger to actually talk about it, right? So that become a holistic way of how to do something with the right automation, with right support system, and you share the right story with the right people. And then the people who are sharing the story, they actually like, right? That's the 3 parts is people have to like you, people have to like your product, and people have to like your company. When we break, most of the time is they are so busy doing everything. They're just going out there talking to everyone. And the messaging is always a little bit different, where they take too long to get to that point. So the rest
Mhm.
of us have to be like, oh shoot, I have to take a lot more time to figure out what are they sharing with me, right? And then if you're
Mhm.
making other people do work, they tend to be like, whoa, it's burning too much of my brain cells. So good
Yeah.
luck next, right? So that's the breaking point is that we need to make sure the message is clear. The people, you're building your own reputation as a thought leader, as someone who truly have the right, not just passion, but a right reputation.
Yeah.
And you have a system to support. Means if you're going out there to conference, which you do so much and really great, you have amazing conference, you start meeting 20, 30 people. You only get to have 5, 10 minutes with them.
Yeah.
Who's helping you or what automation is helping you to capture those contact and continue to build relationship until they turn into a contract or check.
Like basically a conversation, building your rapport, which basically FacilitiOne is which is primarily focused on building relationship with the right type of decision makers, decision influencers, which will convert into what do you call, as you said, like a paycheck or cash, basically. Now, just to understand much better, Sabrina, you actually help startup companies, right? With pitching the investors and everything. Guys, if you need any help related, whoever is watching the podcast, highly recommend. I will actually link her LinkedIn profile, which you can actually reach out to her directly if that's okay with you, Sabrina. Via LinkedIn, she can actually help you guys out. She has a systematic program that she can help you guys with her company that can help you guys to prep yourself in these kind of scenarios. It's not like without actually having a proper strategical move, you would not get anywhere. right? If you have a very like a very systematic strategical move, that's where you can actually nail the industry, I would actually say, like to get to the next level. Right now, Sabrina, you have actually covered all of like almost three of my questions, which comes back to a little bit of a different segment that I'm going to actually ask, which is leadership under pressure, right? You talk about founders and executives doing too much themselves, right? How does over functioning leadership show up inside hospitals and healthcare systems in your personal experience and how you have dealt with that scenario?
We're so passionate people. In healthcare, you wanted to do so much more, but we only have finite amount of time. One of the five exercise that we do with leaders when whether is you have a management team versus your startup, you need to make sure you have the right co-founder with you or the right executive advisor board with you. It's because if people are coming in with what we call the first day effect, right? It's so exciting. Let's just jump in. But things gonna get hard, right? It's an entrepreneurial roller coaster. Then people start diverting. So we see over functioning means you just want to do more and take on more, but it become your sabotaging tendency. So one of the things we talk about in positive psychology and cognitive behavior is that there are 10 sabotaging tendencies. We use them as defensive mechanism until we start recognizing the pattern and we give a name. So the biggest saboteur is judge, right? We judge ourselves, judge other people. Why is it taking so long? This would have taken me 2 hours to do. Why, after a whole hour of training, you guys would still don't understand me, right? It's also because what? We have these saboteurs could be controlling tendency, high achiever tendency, avoidance tendency. There are 10 of them. If we recognize them, then we don't make ourselves more anxious, but flip to the higher round of thinking, which is the sage brain. Now, psychological profile is not enough. A lot of people do Myers-Briggs, StrengthsFinder, discs, but those are social psychology, means in some way our environment shaped us to think this way, to behave this way. But what they're missing is the core of what we're born, right? When we're born, we have these 9 physical features and 9 activation region that being activated, and it's actually across all cultures. And a study for Body of Nine has been out for more than 8,000 people. So we'll see 3 activation center in the head, 3 in the chest, 3 in the abdomen. If you know which one is yours, you start more setting your physical body. Think about it. Most of us talk with our movement, with eye contact. Some people, 50% population don't like to make eye contact. It's not they're disrespectful. That become a distraction for them, right?
Yeah.
Versus other 50%, they're true connector. If you don't look at them, they're like, what's wrong with you, right? You're not paying attention to me. So we have to understand how we physical body moves. That gives so much more cues and honoring ourselves. So when you know your physical body, your psychological body, then you start thinking about what's the true purpose of who you are, right? And if you're missing that, we tend to advise one company, build another company, get another job because everything is searching. It's never confirming what we're trying to create, right? And then once you know your mind, body, soul, then we start thinking about your strength, right? What do you do really well? Are you in that position and leading, creating, or people just thought you're doing really well in something, shove you in there, and it's actually killing your momentum, right? So that's when we start thinking over functioning is because you got excited or you feel like nobody else can do it but you, and you start losing on your spiritual purpose, on how you physically communicate with other people, how your logical profile is sabotaging your success instead of inhibiting, which means there's a lack of resilience. And when there's no resilience within ourselves, our team, our company, then anything happens with the recent a war, attack, right? People cannot travel back to the country or your supply chain is going to stop. Now, if you didn't build this buffer system, then of course it feels like you're in a pressure cooking all the time. So your
Yeah.
over functioning is actually slowing you down. and not helping you. So that five-dimensional of leadership understanding is how we will make sure a company can be sustainable.
That actually gives a pretty much of a perspective, which is also helpful for myself that you are given us. There's nine segments within your body, so which I like you said, there's three on your head and then chest three and then your abdomen three. Fascinating. That was the first ever time that I heard about it. Coming back to a little bit of from that touch point itself, Sabrina, is it realistic to expect a high performance in healthcare without redesigning the leadership models or the team structure?
Well, we see it has to be redesigned all three ways. We have to redesign the operational backend support, the tools, the infrastructure, the automation that need to be there. And you do have to redesign your human. And when we think about redesigning, most of the time is how do we understand them better? So one of the things that we do is called book of you. Means if we understand you in this five-dimensional of physical, spiritual, mental capacity and resiliency, then everybody else now have a manual on how to talk to you, how to act, how you see important things. And we also seeing a different layer of dimension means even you have the same physical activation, how you move, how you interact, but you have a different purpose in life, right? And therefore, you're going to make a different decision than someone else. So, for example, my physical activation is in the back of my chest. My gift and my tendency is seeing the whole big picture. That's why I'm a strategist. I can see the big idea people bring to me and sharing with me how they think they want to do it. I can already pick out the holes. And then I'm trying to help them to flash that out. But because my purpose is helping those who has visionary ideas to make a true impact, and I'm comfortable here. And versus another partner of mine who also do see big picture, but her purpose in life is actually helping people in their own shoes of discover on their own, right? So I'm more about take the problem to me, I'm solving it, so you don't have to go zigzag and wasting time and resource. Her purpose is actually helping them to self-discover, right? To learn it with them. So it's a different path. Now, if there's no right and wrong way, right? Because there's choices that we all make. But then you start adding on top of positive intelligence, those sabotaging tendency. She's more of a avoider. I have zero avoidance, right? But I have a high achiever saboteur. Means if I don't feel like I achieved to a milestone, I always feel like, what else is it? Do I lose something, right? So when we start thinking these different dynamic of a human being, then we can interact better. We can, when things don't go right, we can even apologize better, right? So we can actually moving on together. So high performance is actually about who are you as leaders? Do you really understand how to support these leaders? And then when we're creating additional roles or shift people in the right seats, then we can create these job role and then interview question to say, this is the leader that you're supporting. This is how they behave. This is what we see the best, not just things to do for the tasks, but how you're going to interact. Now you give people a more of a holistic picture of, oh, wow, okay, we can more be on each other's pace. So that will also help with retention. We also hear often is that, oh, we hired a new CFO, we hired a new project manager, but they didn't last 2 months because they really rocked the boat, right? People didn't like that. Or they wanted to change too much. Or people didn't really understand what they were trying to say and they felt offended, right? It's because you didn't have those clear understanding how you're fitting people into that culture, that role that they deserve to be seen.
Sense actually. Well, in regards of capital, trust, and decision making, Sabrina, just want to touch that one point that I personally seen. I've spoken to a lot of startup health tech firms who actually approached FacilitiOne to actually promote their technologies that they're going to be getting it implemented in the market. Now, one of the biggest issues is that you personally, what is that one operational red flag investors and health systems should we stop ignoring?
Red flag, usually what we see is if they are a solar founder,
Mhm.
doesn't have that much support system, you can truly be a star, but we also know the burnout rate is very high. So what that is related to everything we talked about on leadership, on creation, on balance, on resilience. If we see that you have medical directors, you have tech team, you are truly building something great and you're passionate about it, that's number one green flag. But the immediate next question is who's actually going to join hands with you and keep going? It's not good enough to show us a business plan when we don't see any operational resources and human support in there, because then we just know you're throwing a hypothetical situation, you're over projecting most of the time, you actually cannot do execution. So most of the time, what the red flag is, we're identifying you don't have the capacity or capability to actually execute on what you're proposing, where people have no clear map to even tell us how are you using your capital, because just because you have a whole, let's say the other way, right? They do have one or two slide of all these amazing people on their board. But
Mhm.
then we start thinking, when you have too many people, again, how are you leveraging their influence, their expertise to help you to do this, right? So it's all about execution at the end of the day. So what most startup are missing out, they always come to us like, we need a fundraise. And then we say, okay, do you know why people would cut you a check? Is that they see there's a true possibility that you have something worthwhile that will improve lives of patients, caregivers, hospital systems, providers, right? Some part of that ecosystem. And then they say, can you actually do it? Because if people are telling you this is too good to be true, then you should have that self-reflection of people don't believe you can execute. That's often why many investors or contractor to say, you're too small or you're not where you're at. Once you make to your ABC milestone, come back to us because they don't believe that you can actually execute. So we have to fix that first. Give you that concrete plan, understanding all the critical domain of the business, which there are 12, how you connect all of them together so you can actually execute. So that's next 6 months, next year has a critical turning point you can reflect on and not just, oh, I just need more money for building better tech or better services. Oh, I need money to go to market. What does that mean?
That makes sense, actually. Well, coming to towards the end of our session here, Sabrina, I just wanted to actually let our audience know about your company, the awarding system that you actually have, and also one last thing. I'm sure that you're going to be available for September 16th, 17th, and 18th for the FacilitiOne's healthcare event that we're going to be hosting in Dallas, Texas. We would love to actually have you to do a workshop for us as well, if that's possible, with yourself and your team as well to join us at the event. But before we get into that, I just wanted to actually let our audience know about your company and how you can help startup companies to get in front of the investors that they're trying to crack that ice, you know?
Yeah, we're a fractional advisory board for growth phase companies. The biggest challenge often is you're at that place of chicken and eggs. Do I hire just a couple fractional, help me here and there? But then they feel like, oh my gosh, I'm hiring in the wrong time frame and it just burned a bunch of cash, because just having a financial expert or just having legal that can be good at different phases of your company, but if you are cash flow poor, and they might not be the best first people to hire. So we realize what you're missing out is that holistic perspective. Then you are truly filling all the blind spot because we're able to identify that for you. And it's about having the foundation to build a castle, not on top of sand, but truly, no matter what happens, you are sellable, you're sustainable, and you're scalable. And for us, every year we do a impact award. Go to healthtechimpactaward.com. It's free nomination. Application closes on March 1st. And we have 6 categories. We honor the biotech, the medical device, digital health companies, women's health solutions, mental health solutions, and diagnostic care. And maybe sometimes you might fit into two categories, then select both of them. And the whole award system is to also help you guys to see, leverage the award system to make yourself stand out, not just another company, because you're leveraging the third party recognition to say that you are being seen, being recognized, being vetted. I think it's the same concept. Many people go to pitch competitions, but because conferences also have a price tag of traveling, we do everything virtually. And for us, it's all about the right match, matching you with the right investor who truly not just capital resource, but also honoring the growth. And you're not losing the identity. You don't feel like you're losing the control of how the company is going to shape, but also match you with the right advisors, a support system that will help you to go much faster because they've been there. They have 20 years of experience there. And so we're so excited to connect with more investors and advisors who wanted to invest or advise in startup companies or the startups who are ready for the next level of push. So apply to our Impact Award or happy to have a conversation privately, how to tap into the rest of our ecosystem. For sure, just find my name, Sabrina Runbeck, in LinkedIn, and we can have a more conversation and go from there.
Fantastic. Do not hesitate. Go check her out. Go apply for those nominations. Win that. Always try to stand out in the market itself. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Sabrina. It was a pleasure to have you. Looking forward to seeing you and your team as well in Texas, if possible, during those dates. We would love to host you at the event. And on that note, thank you so much for your time and have a great day.